Hey y'all, I recently went to Iceland and I saw the Northern Lights while I was there. So I figured I'd share some information about the Northern Lights because I learned some new things while I was there. And in this video, I'm going to be using Northern Lights and Aurora or Aurora Borealis interchangeably. So just keep that in mind. Alright, so when is Northern Lights season? It is, I think, October to about April. Maybe very early April. So we are approaching the end of Northern Lights season actually. And I went from the end of February to early March, and I didn't get this video out for a while because I kept forgetting to record it. In case you don't know, there are also Southern Lights, and the season is the opposite of the Northern Lights, kind of like the regular seasons. So if you need to see the aurora right now, I guess you can go to the southern hemisphere. So something you really need to keep in mind is that the aurora are not as green in person. So at first they showed up more gray or white in the sky as they started coming towards us. The aurora starts in the north and then they slowly come south, I guess. And it wasn't until they're right above us that we could see green with our bare eyes. So the camera actually captures a lot more green than what you can see with your eyes. So basically you want to try to face north because that's probably going to be the first place you see the northern lights. You're probably going to see maybe a thin line, just a thin white or gray line at first, and then it should move in your direction, or it may just disappear. You never know. So, seeing the northern lights is quite a gamble. We tried twice. The first night, we could only see the thin white line, and then it disappeared. The second time, we saw two thin gray lines, and right as we were about to leave, they showed up above us, and it was awesome. But we couldn't stay there for long because it was maybe 13 degrees Fahrenheit, so we were kind of numb by then. And unfortunately, by then, my phone was basically frozen and it wasn't capturing pictures correctly. So here are my pictures. Basically, you have to set your camera to the highest level of exposure possible, and you have to mess around with some other settings if you have an iPhone 11 or older. I have an 11, so I had to do all that stuff manually. I think if you have an iPhone 12 or newer, it's automatic. And of course, if you have a fancy camera, I guess you need to adjust many settings manually, but you'll probably get a pretty good picture if you know what you're doing. You have to stay still for quite a long time if you want to get a good shot. And so that means if you have a regular camera or an iPhone, you're probably not going to get a video of the northern lights. It's really hard to do that unless you have a lot of time. The only way that I think you could maybe do it with an iPhone is if you take a bunch of pictures and then try to animate them together, but that's gonna take a lot of time and patience. And please keep your flash off. Like, if you're in a big group like I was, there are many tour groups in Iceland where maybe hundreds of people can show up depending on the night. A lot of people would keep their flash on even though they were told to turn it off, and it was really disorienting for everyone. If you have extra money, maybe go on a small group tour or a private tour, or just maybe rent a car and do it yourself, but then you'd have to drive through some crazy conditions probably. When we were going up the mountain the first time, because we were going to the highlands, the bus was rocking back and forth really hard because there was a severe windstorm and there were no road lights either. So this isn't for everyone. So I would really recommend getting a tour guide or just going on a tour if you're not familiar with the area and the weather conditions. So many cultures have their own myths and legends about the Northern Lights, and of course, Iceland has one that's quite interesting, which is if you're pregnant and you look directly at the Northern Lights, your baby will become cross-eyed or have bad vision. There are many different regional beliefs about the Northern Lights in places like Sweden, Norway, Russia, Alaska, Canada, etc. So if you're interested, I would recommend looking into it. And it makes sense because, thousands of years ago, people would see these weird lights in the sky and they were just trying to make sense of it. And I guess because Iceland was settled a lot more recently, this belief about giving birth to a cross-eyed baby is more of a recent belief compared to the other ones, the other regions, which are probably much older. I'll try to find a link to something that briefly explains the history of these regional beliefs and leave it in the description of this video if I remember to do that. So I'm gonna explain a little bit more about the tour that I went on. So I went with Reykjavik Excursions, and I'm obviously not sponsored by them. I don't think I even need to say that with the subscriber count that I have. And I just selected the regular Northern Lights tour, and like I said, there can be hundreds of people there. So just keep that in mind, especially if it's the peak of the Northern Lights season. It'll probably be like that. I wasn't there in the peak, but I would imagine it's even crazier during January or something. So I selected the hotel pickup point that was closest to me, and I had to wait there for a while because you kind of don't know exactly when the bus is going to show up. Then you get taken to the bus terminal, and then you go on the tour. You'll probably end up back at your accommodation at 12:30 in the morning, so you're probably going to be pretty tired if you're not used to that time zone. And plus, just being out in the cold for that long is really tiring. We had a great night's sleep after that, that's for sure, and you probably will too. There were bathrooms on site, but not all of the locations that they go to have a bathroom on site. But the buses do have a bathroom. I would recommend bringing hand cleaner and maybe some toilet paper with you because the bus bathrooms don't always have it. If you have any more questions about Iceland or the Northern Lights, just let me know. I might make another video about this. So please like, comment, and subscribe, and maybe tap on the bell. Thank you. Also, I'd really appreciate it if you would donate to my Ko-fi or Ko-fi. I'm not totally sure how it's pronounced, but even $1 is much appreciated. So thank you in advance. I know this is a bit different from my normal videos since I usually make crochet tutorials, but I don't want to be trapped in a box,